Right, so today I'm going to show you how to build this kind of a pyramid out of stools using Blender actions. So let's turn it off. I use a hotkey for that disables every object. So I have my stool right here, and as you can see it's gigantic. I need to scale it down, but I don't know where its pivot is. So I'm going to set my own. First I'm going to hide everything, pressing Shift H. Now I'm going to hold Control Shift to set my pivot. It's the green dot that you see. Now that the pivot is set, I'm going to press Alt backquote to start the pivot scaling mode. And now I can scale it using my own pivot. Right, let's bring everything back. Scale this tool some more. Reposition it. Yeah, I believe we can scale it up a bit. Yeah, right. So now I need it to be standing on top of this pavement. I can reposition it using the translation tool and set the constraints to the y-axis, but then I'll be just eyeballing it, and it's not ideal. The better way to do it is to select a piece of pavement, hide everything, pick my stool, raise it up, position my mouse near the leg of the stool, start moving it, move it to the vertex of the pavement, hold Control, and now it snaps to the pavement, and as you can see it sits perfectly on the pavement. Yeah, so we unhide everything, reposition our stool by setting constraints to XZ plane, and to do that you press Shift Y after you start your translation tool with G. Now that the stool is positioned, we rotate it. As you can see, it rotates around the wrong pivot because the pivot rotation mode is still active. So I turn it off. Now I can rotate it around the stool's pivot. Yeah, so now we bring it to the front. And to move it this way, I use the local axis constraint, and local axis constraints can be set by pushing a button twice. So if you set a constraint by pushing X button after you started your translation tool once, you set the world constraints. If you push it twice, you set the local constraint. So I'm bringing it forward a bit. Now I duplicate it by pressing Shift D. Shift D, unlike Control D, immediately starts moving the object, just like in Blender. Yeah, I position it a little bit higher on top of the previous tool, and now I can move it to the front a bit. And now if you remember, let's just remove this and unhide the pyramid. Yeah, if you remember this pyramid, it has these curves. So the stools, they form a curve, and I'm gonna try to replicate it. As you can see, everything I do with Blender actions can be undone by pressing Ctrl Z. That's how the plugin is built. So yeah, now I want to slightly rotate it counterclockwise. But if I start rotating it, as you can see, it rotates in a weird way. Again, I can just set my own pivot, start the pivot rotation mode, and now I can rotate it how I want it to. Just slightly rotate it to the left, clone, bring it up, and when I position it, I can use the Shift button to be very precise. You won't be as precise with Unity's tool because it's always fast. You know, you can always miss something. By pressing Shift, I can be very precise and move it exactly how I want it to. Set the pivot again, rotate again, duplicate, bring forward, to the left a bit, set pivot, rotate, rotate, duplicate, bring forward, up a bit, set pivot, rotate. The pivot setting algorithm ignores walls and ignores the culling, so it can set the pivot through the walls, so you have to be aware of that. Duplicate again, and as you can see, I'm using the local axis. It can sometimes do things like this. Just move your camera and you'll have a better control. And as you can see, we are starting to build the curve. And that's how it's done. Thanks for your attention.